Good evening. Welcome, welcome to Athens City Council. Tonight we're meeting in committees. We have 4 committees that will be meeting this evening. That's essentially all of our committees. Finance and Personnel Committee, City and Safety Services, Transportation Committee, Planning and Development. We're actually going to begin with Finance and Personnel. Chris Nisley is the chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 4 items tonight. 3 of them have to do with appropriations, and one is an update on some news that will be coming up in the future. The first one has to do with the Lancaster Street improvements. Just as a little bit of background information, you may recall that this is part of our large improvements there. It was a $1.3 million project that we've had ongoing for the past at least probably the year. It started actually in October 2012 with a preliminary design. And as part of the funding for that, we did receive Ohio Public Works Commission money that was appropriated last year, $400,000. And we did have several drawdowns, and what we're needing to do with our next appropriation is primarily a bookkeeping entry for the purpose of the auditor's office. At the end of last year, we took away the appropriation for that $400,000 grant. That money has come in and out as a revenue and expense for the project, and the exact amount of that is $392,339.18, and that's the Ohio Public Works grant portion of the project. So what we'll be doing as part of the appropriation ordinance next week will be authorizing and then appropriating that amount of money so that we can recognize it in the books for that particular grant. Any questions or comments? Okay.
As Member Nisley said, it's really bookkeeping. Those were direct payments from the grantor to the contractor. So it's just, but we do have to show that because the grant was awarded to the City of Athens.
Yeah, basically, we got the money in, but really didn't carry it through. It went directly to the contractor. Most of it,
yes.
yeah.
And so we need to make sure we're tracking it as a project,
Right.
income and
We
expense.
have to show that we received it, even though we didn't have to write a check or anything like that.
And that has to do with the assets of a city, basically. We've improved this road X amount of dollars, and therefore it reflects the value of a little city here.
Okay. The next item has to do with an appropriation that will be for council funds, and we will be needing to appropriate $11,000 additional dollars. At the beginning of the year, we appropriated $50,000 for general council expenses, knowing that we might need to increase this slightly. The $11,000 will pay for our annual supplement to our municipal code, also our city website, host site, and the Nixle information that provides general information to the public. There's another $20,000 that we will be moving forward to appropriate, and this will be for new GIS maps, and would be charged to other admin, account 120.
This has to do with every 10 years or so, they do ortho maps, high-definition maps of the county and the city and the university. We all pull our funds together. This year they've stepped up the resolution. I think they're going to go with lit-air and 3-inch resolution. And our contribution for it is $20,000. I was kind of aware of this last year, but I did not put it in the budget because I just slipped my mind. I thought it was still in discussion. So the idea is to add that to the general admin dollars, and it will go as a professional service towards doing this. It's a contract with yes.
Who will be doing the work for the GIS?
Actually, I think we're contracting through the county, so it's been at Ball, but I assume he's not flying around doing it. He's got some other contract. But it's been a discussion with the planner, Paul Logue, for about a half a year now. I've been to the Regional Planning Commission several times. It's been mentioned there. It just didn't click that I should be putting money aside for it. So that's kind of my fell through the cracks here. I wasn't sure how fast they were going to do it either, how fast the contracts.
And how fast is that going to happen?
I think it's they want to do it real soon, but I didn't bring the contract with me. What?
They want to do it with leap off. Usually you
Yeah.
do those ortho photos with leaf fall.
Yeah.
So
So
I think
before
that
the
they're
first bloom of spring in the leaves. So soon. There was a date on it, but I did not bring it with me at this time. I have the contract ready to sign. I just don't have the money.
And you said that we're doing that in conjunction with the county and the university, did I hear?
They
you?
all get together to, usually wouldn't involve the other entities at the county in general, but often the university wants a higher definition. In the past, what they've done is they said, we want this for our campus area, and the city wants a certain resolution, the county wants another resolution. We're closer to, I don't think the range is as much this time around. And again, it comes into, it will eventually be laid on top of our GIS system, so everybody knows what things look like in terms of elevations. It will give us a better shot of what's going on.
And it's a pretty impressive resolution this time around. So it's
Yeah.
going to give us a lot better information, and so.
We've discussed previously, but I did want to make mention one more time that we do now have the final draft of the ordinance for the University Estates assessments. So we'll be moving through with that as an ordinance next week. And one additional item that I have is that in the future, we don't have all the details tonight, but we have assisted in the past some homeowners with down payment monies through our Community Housing Improvement Program, what's known as the CHIP grant, and that we may have coming forward in the next few weeks some authorization for some financing at a home we've helped previously through this program. And so we'll have more details on that within the next few weeks.
This is somebody trying to add a mortgage to it, or refinance, and it's a subordination. We've done this in the past. So I'm trying to find out more information about it. In the past, actually, most of the time, the way it's been structured is that the loan has to tally no more than 80% of the appraised value. There's a little bit question of whether that is that and whether we need to follow that particular guideline. So I'll bring more information. I've been going back and forth with HAPCAP on this.
Okay, thank you. And any other items that people have for the finance and personnel?
We have a pretty significant slip on Gibson Road. It's kind of transportation, but there's financial implications here, and it's such that, let's see if I can help this up. We really, it's kind of outside our capability. We'd have to rent a big excavator to try to repair this. So Andy's guess is it could be close to an additional $50,000 needed in street to repair this. That's at the person's mailbox down there, as you can see. So
When did this happen?
Friday. So we just have kind of the lane closure going on now, but with who knows what's going to occur. He was going to try to get his head around it and get some estimates for you prior to next Monday's meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Where did you say?
Where?
Yeah.
Gibson Road. They're off of 56.
Yeah.
A portion of it's in our city.
And this is the
Of course.
where the orange barrels are. You can't miss it, but please don't veer too close to the edge.
So we're seeking emergency repair quotes from local contractors.
Okay, thank you for the update.
Okay, and as for the GIS system, what they're talking about was, my service safety director says early spring of this year, so they want to roll with it. And they're talking about collecting 3-inch resolution ortho imagery for the 51.7 square mile area. It's countywide 6-inch pixel resolution, and countywide 1 meter lit air for 4-foot countywide contours. So,
And
what else?
the contracts with Athens County 911. So,
Okay. I hope that helps.
Okay, we're going to change the order of our committee structure here. We have some guests who are here probably for the Planning and Development Committee.
Yes.
So that committee is chaired by Chris Fall, and take it away, Chris.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm going to go out of order, too, so we can get our guests out earlier and sit through all our other miscellaneous and our track hoe replacement discussion. Tonight, I would like, for miscellaneous, it's been brought to my attention by the planner, Paul Logue, that there is discussion to do an annexation process out by Armitage Road, and the people who would like to do the annexation have come here to give us a heads up, which we very much appreciate. So if you can come up and... Yeah, could you sign in? There's a sign up. Is there a sign up sheet open? There should be a sign in, just so that we.
Has a picture.
Sort of. Oh, it's,
Try
well,
not
it's
to
under
electrocute
everything.
myself on doing that.
We need a bigger task. Thanks.
Greetings. My name is Rusty Rittenhouse. I've met a few of you before. I represent Alex Kalatis, who is seeking to annex approximately 2.2 acres off of Armitage Road into the city of Athens. This property is next to University Estates. It is adjacent to the city corporate limits, and it's very close to 681. The purpose of this is it's going to be a proposed site of a microbrewery, but because it's in the wellhead protection area, in order to facilitate that, it would need to get city sewage and city water. We've talked to the Athens Township trustees. They're on board with this. We've talked to Paul and Andy Stone. Both of them have given us positive feedback, but they had recommended that we speak to you to get your feedback as well. We haven't filed our petition yet, but we anticipate doing that here in the next few weeks. We'll probably seek to do that under an expedited process. We're going to probably seek to have it zoned B3 so that it can be developed into that microbrewery, and we believe it'll provide a benefit to the area. In vision, it's going to be very similar to the Jackie O's, I think they call it a tap house, which is near Richland Avenue, and this would be a nice destination near the bike path. It would provide a nice place to go if you live in University Estates and want a beer on your porch on summer evenings, and I think it would just add a little bit of character to that area. Alex is with me, and he is ready to answer some questions if you have any specific answers that you're seeking.
I talked briefly with Paul Logue about this. It is in the city wellhead area. However, it's not in the floodplain area, so it has less regulation that way. And it is adjacent to, as they said, adjacent to city lines as it is. So I'd open it up for questions if people have questions.
Can I just make a few comments?
Yep.
Thank you. The critical issue, the property's under contract with the developers, subject to annexation, sewer, and utilities. So we've got some time, and we knew this was going to take some time, so
Right.
we made the closing date on out into May, June, somewhere in that area. So we've been working on the requirements, and one of the issues is it's now serviced by LEAX. I have had some contact with LEAX board members about how that might work, and I guess there's a couple of options. There might be a possibility of the city and LEAX maybe swapping some services, or we would possibly have to buy out the LEAX contract under some type of calculation of what that cost might be, and we're prepared to do that as well. I do have a very detailed business plan. I can't really, I'm under a little bit of tight lips to be able to share all the details, but just to show you, there is a very detailed business plan. I think they're even working on possibly getting a little bit of some grant money to help with some of these utility extensions, but again, that's all just sort of on the drawing board. We're just moving forward, and they can't really do much until the annexation process happens, and they're assured there's going to be utilities there.
Okay. Questions?
So, Mr. Kalatis, help us here a little bit. Which parcel are we looking at for the annexation? What's in red? Is
Yes.
that what I'm?
Yes, if you have the
Okay.
same map, this
Okay.
one here, it's the red.
Okay.
No.
I think formal.
Yes, was us.
Structure already there.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's structures in place, and I'm assuming then renovations to all these structures.
Yes, it was a garage at one point in time, and then the owner of University Estates just used it as a service
Right, I
building for equipment and vehicles and so forth. And
At one time, I think there was also chemicals there. That was an issue
He was
at
storing
one point. Yeah. So, are there any questions or comments at this point?
And I want to add also, I just thought of this, I am a co-owner with the property with my now deceased aunt. She passed away last month, and Rusty's firm is representing her estate, of which I am the administrator. So I am not the full owner, I am a half owner with my deceased aunt being the other half owner. Her estate's the other half owner.
So, well, I think, you have another question?
Well, I was just going to say, from an economic development part, one of the things they say for tourist attractions like bike trails and whatnot is they like eating establishments nearby and quaint types of places to go. And this will be right off once that trail goes on up to University Estates and we have all that completed. I mean, it's right there, you know, and then easy access off of 682.
Right.
Right.
So,
And it's a nice spot for outdoor, you know, I would
Yeah,
encourage.
in the business plan, I might add 2 full-time and 2 part-time employees initially is what's projected in their business plan. So, you know, I thought that was a positive thing as well. That it would be, and the property's been, from the previous owner, the property is in disrepair, and I'm in the process now. I've got a quote to get everything else cleaned up on the outside. It's mostly just been building materials laying around and some old tires and things, and just as soon as the weather breaks, which it has, kind of, but
Right.
we should be able to get that taken care of and then move forward.
Okay.
Is the intent then in the future with this being a microbrewery that it'll be all brewed on premises alcohol that's being served there, or?
Yes, there won't be any,
Chain.
it'll just be a tasting situation. There'd be a tasting situation, I think, like
Like the
Jackie
tap
O's
room?
has down there,
Right.
but not a licensed for consumption license.
Well, Jackie O's at Stimson, you can consume on premises. They do
Right.
sell pints, but they don't have, they have food, but it's brought in by somebody else.
Catered or
Yeah, catered, so,
You're referring to the tap room?
the tap room. So,
And if you could refresh my memory then on process as far as we're concerned. I see from the letter from the city planner that the Athens Township trustees are amenable to thinking about this.
Right.
And then we would go through the annexation
The
process on this end.
county has to release it first, so you have to make a presentation in the county. They have to release for annexation the piece of property has to go in front of the planning commission to be zoned, right, to get the zoning designation. And then it has to go through the annexation process, which usually includes a public hearing. Does the planning commission require a public hearing?
Our understanding is that we would receive it after acceptance in order for the zoning designation.
Okay. Well,
Debbie's got this up down. Right.
usually we accept it with the designate, well, we kind of do it in tandem. Yeah,
We need to say what services we're going to
Right.
provide first.
Right.
Before this
so
has its hearing.
we determine services, which Andy will help with, especially with the LEACs question. That's another kind of bee in the bonnet. I don't know if we've dealt with that before recently.
Not recently, but we definitely dealt with it.
Yeah.
So something we haven't talked about in the last year or two. The last couple of annexations we haven't. And then there's the county, the planning commission. So there's several entities that we
Right.
have to.
I was at the January trustees meeting, and they did vote at that meeting too,
Okay.
that they would not oppose the annexation because
Great.
of the taxing situation.
Right.
So Rusty will be drafting, I think, very soon, the annexation agreement between the city and the Athens Township, so
Okay.
we can move forward in that area.
Yeah. Well, I think that we can work with Andy to look at get all the services identified so we can move forward on that, the planning commission, the county. And there's no reason why they can't go kind of parallel. And we really appreciate coming ahead of time like this.
Well,
I
thank
think
you for
that
allowing
really
us to
helps
come up.
us.
Appreciate us.
The heads
the
up. So we
Okay.
very much. And it sounds great, you know, another microbrewery for Athens. I'm just happy we can all ride our bikes out. So, great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions?
I do. I mean, yeah, I hate to belabor this, but it's something that keeps popping in my head, and this is something I think more for the mayor and the service safety director is that, or anyone, the zoning that currently exists down in that area, is it?
It's no zoning because
but
it's in the county.
University Estates.
University States.
That's the
is not
yellow.
part of this, but there's-
Correct.
University State has B3s, I think, R3s,
R3s,
and
R1s.
R1s. And our PUDs.
And then the Hope property,
That's our OS.
Open space.
it is our OS.
We're an adjacent property.
So I was just trying to get a sense as to what this looks like down in that part of the city, that's all.
You should be able to go on GIS and delineate anything in the city, but as I say, once you're outside the city limits, there's no zoning. And if I understand correctly, actually, the next step for them is to go to the county commissioners. They'll ask us what service we'll deliver, the county commissioners will get it back, then it
Right.
goes back and forth a couple more times.
So,
So,
Yeah,
Because
no, I
this-
understood that that property is not zoned.
Is this map actually accurate? Should there be more yellow here where the Hope properties are?
Right, it hasn't been updated because we
Right.
just obtained that.
So this is city property.
down at
This whole green area is
This
the,
is-
well,
Yes.
no, it says city.
Yeah, it
city-
says city, it's
city.
just not yellow.
No, right.
Yeah.
It's green.
I mean,
So-
where you see the 11.21 acres, that's what we purchased for the Northwest Bikeways for the riparian corridor, which is going to bring in open space.
We have a lot of open and green space out there. Is your intention to keep as much of your project green as you can, or?
Yeah, I think I don't know that they'll be utilizing, I don't know what they'll be utilizing in that little long elongated area there. I think most of the facilities
That
going
looks really nice there.
Yeah.
It's almost like a park. Just wonder what you had in mind.
Yeah,
too.
well, I couldn't speak to what they have in mind,
Right,
but my purpose is to sell the entire property to them in one transaction.
And from a wellhead protection standpoint, the wellhead protection team did discuss this, and it's actually an improvement. You know, the garage that was there would not be allowed today.
Right.
Right. And then there's been issues with that garage before, hasn't there?
So containment, so.
Yep.
But that's all been cleaned up, and I believe Alex worked with Andy on that, so.
So, great. Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Oh,
Yes, thank you very much.
okay.
Miscellaneous?
Yeah, I'm done with miscellaneous. Anybody else have miscellaneous? Then I'll go to, I'd like to talk about the House Bill 375, which is before, well, actually, it passed out of the House Natural Resources Committee today, but we'll have to go to the Senate and get a lot more negotiation with it. It's the severance tax for oil and gas drilling, and many of you have probably heard somewhat about it. It's been on the news about Kasek's plan to increase the severance tax for basically fracking, to increase that severance tax and do certain things with the increased revenue from it. The House decided not to do it in part of the budget. Kasich has brought it back, and the 375 is kind of what the House has put forward. That's not Kasich's plan, not the Senate's plan, but and you may remember last year we talked about having a city severance tax on oil and gas, and unfortunately because of the inability of the state to allow home rule, they wouldn't let us do that. So I think that we have demonstrated our interest and our desire to make sure that people, the taxpayers of Ohio, are fairly compensated for natural resources that are taken from their land, and that is basically the idea behind a severance tax. I would like to introduce a one-reading resolution next week to tell, as a body, what is important for Athens in the severance tax. there are certain things in the severance tax as it stands now that are, in my mind, completely unacceptable for the impacts that can come our way via, especially via horizontal drilling or fracking. So I think the number one need right now is to look at the severance tax proposals to give part of the money, the increase in severance tax, to impacted areas. And theoretically, those are areas that are impacted by increases in the production of fracking oil and gas. That means having all the roads and the police and those sort of things. The definition right now in HB 375 only looks at production, does not look at cradle to grave, production to disposal. So that means Athens, which is not necessarily a large player in the Utica or Marcellus shale play, but certainly is a target for injection wells to get rid of all the garbage they produce through the production. We would be out of luck through HB 375. They need, so I would like part of that resolution to read very emphatically that they need to increase, improve the definition of what is an impacted area, to look at cradle to grave. Because as it stands now, production, you do have some economic spillover from some of the jobs that are created. Injection wells is a lose-lose situation for us. We get all the traffic, we get the potential spills, we get the potential accidents from the trucks going down the same road as our school buses. You get the potential air pollution and water pollution. And the only person who's potentially making money off this whole situation is the company that's doing the dumping, and possibly maybe the landowner that owns the fracking, the injection well. It's not a development, it's not an economic development argument. It is just using Athens County as a waste site. So that's one thing I would like to put in the resolution. The second thing I would like to put in the resolution is to encourage the redevelopment of the bill, to increase the tax. Right now, they're proposing a 2.25% severance tax on the oil or gas that comes out. This is only from horizontal drilling. In the actual bill, they reduce the tax for vertical drilling. So overall, the economic benefit of the severance tax, not as much as you would think. And 2.25%, I'd like to talk about like the areas that are around, the states that are around us. Because one of the arguments the oil and gas industry makes is if you tax us too much, we will leave. Well, you can't leave if the gas is there. You can't leave the county if the gas is under the county. You can't leave Ohio if the gas is under Ohio. That is a fallacy. So, Illinois has 3%, and in 2 years' time, they're going to have a 6% severance tax. Kansas is 8%. West Virginia is 5%, and Michigan is 6.6%. Pennsylvania has a severance tax, but it's called a local impact tax, and it depends on the local area. And I'd like to compare those nationwide with those really anti-oil states, such as Louisiana, 12.5%. Texas, 4.6%. Oklahoma, they don't like oil and gas, 7%. Ooh, and Alaska, don't have any oil development there, 25%. So the idea that you don't have oil and gas development when you have a high severance tax is bunkum. I would also like to put in that as it stands now, HB 375 has too many tax credits and carve out. For example, as it stands now, companies that do oil drilling and such are exposed to the commercial activities tax. They want to make an exemption for that. So is it really an increase in taxes? And furthermore, I would also like to point out that CASIC would like to use a percentage of the new severance tax coming in for an across-the-board income tax reduction. And we have seen, that tends to benefit people who are in the upper 1%, not necessarily the people like our county population. And last, I would like to talk about the fact that one of the ideas behind having a severance tax is to make sure that you fund the departments and organizations that are supposed to be overseeing the regulatory administration of permitting, cleaning up, making sure that wells are safe, making sure work sites are safe. It's seen that in the analysis of HB 375 that the ODNR, which is in charge of the oversight of drilling in the state, is actually going to get a decrease in overall funding because they are reducing some of the severance taxes on other types of oil and gas production. So it's not an increase for ODNR. It's not an increase, even though there are now some 1,500 permits out there, sitting out there that are being worked on for the state. And it also makes ODNR reliant on funding that comes from the companies and the industry that they have to oversee, which, in my mind, is a conflict of interest in so many ways. So I would like to have make sure that the state funds ODNR and its regulatory oversight responsibilities in a sustainable and practical way that does not rely on the industry itself and production from that industry in order to fund them, in order to overlook the industry. So I think those are the issues that I see with 375. I know that the Senate is looking at a bill, so there'll be conferences. Lou Gentile has been very involved in this, and he's very concerned about the fact that local governments are continually hit by budget cuts, and that the amount of money that will actually come from increased severance tax on the fracking part is very minimal. So he wants to increase that part, help to reduce the impacts that are on these counties, and to expand it to include injection well and dumping sites. Paul?
The only thing I would add is that the profits are gross and not net,
Right.
if possible.
So, and that's a big difference, because when they start talking about how you develop the net numbers, you have a whole lot of other exemptions and deductions that the industry has put in. And as my feeling is, the industry has had a large part of helping write this program, this bill. So, other questions?
Covers it pretty well.
Yeah.
I think so.
So I'd like a one reading resolution. It frustrates me to no end that we end up having to do resolutions over and over because the state refuses to listen to local input and allow us local control, such as having maybe an impact fee on possible, injection wells that come into the city or the county, especially the county. But as it stands now, we don't have local control, we don't have local say. So, but we need to say something as a city. So.
I 100% agree. I'm concerned that we seem to be moving away from regulation. Yeah. And also the impacts. Everyone knows that at some point down the road, there's going to be an impact. We already have wells exploding, and as we well know, to our neighbors to the south, way south too, in North Carolina, that there are, consequences to this type of extraction. So the fact that we can't even pass a severance tax, even Illinois is looking down the road saying they're not developing yet in Illinois. They're just talking about it, that they're 2 years out, they're looking at 6%. They're forward thinking. We're not forward thinking in any kind of legislation the way currently this bill is proposed. It's not forward thinking in any way.
It's industrial thinking.
So thank you, Member Fall.
Thank you, Member Fall. Are we talking to commissioners or anything?
Well, I mean, the commissioners, we can forward this to commissioners. I will give a list of who should be on the
Okay.
receipt, so.
That was my question. Thank you.
Did
Do
you
have one more
last?
miscellaneous. Any
Okay.
miscellaneous?
So,
Or you don't want to
No.
jump topics here?
so, I'm done.
It was brought to my attention that there needs a city council liaison for the tree commission. There's nobody who's,
I thought Jennifer was doing that.
is Jennifer doing that?
Yes,
Okay.
and she's not here, so we can volunteer her.
No, I
Sounds good.
If she hasn't already served.
She said a while ago.
No, she did.
Yeah, she's
Okay, I-
attended.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
I
she
was
did,
told that
she
nobody
did
was there
volunteer
at the
last year,
meeting.
so,
Okay,
thank you.
now we know.
Great. That's all I have for planning and development.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm off my homework.
We're going to move back now to City and Safety Services Committee, chaired by Member Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. We only have one item tonight that I'm aware of anyway, and that has to do with the Brine Lagoon. And
What kind of brine, Member Patterson?
That's true. That's a good point.
moving on. As a lot of you are aware, in June of 2012, there was disposal of what's called hydrofluoric acid into the Brine Lagoon that was expired materials, and so not knowing what to do with that material, it wound its way up into the Brine Lagoon. Ohio EPA was notified, and the hydrofluorosilicic acid was properly diluted out. It took a number of days to have that to where its pH level was appropriate to release into the Hocking River. But it set into motion Ohio EPA coming down and doing a larger, more in-depth inventory of materials, looking at the facility and whatnot. And then they came forward with essentially their assessment, which basically led to a civil penalty of payment that the city would have to pay of $14,400. With that are two options that Ohio EPA came forward with in terms of how we go about paying those, and both of them have to do with supplemental environmental projects, SEPs, or two SEPs. Both of them being for $7,200. The first one is something that we do annually anyway, which is our hazardous household waste collection, which will be taking place this spring at some point. I don't think we have a firm date yet. Still working on that. The second one was, the second SEP was in lieu, again, of paying the remaining $7,200, was instead to have a thorough kind of reviewing of how hazardous wastes are inventoried and controlled, what kinds of hazardous wastes there are in in 6 of our facilities that use a number of different toxic substances. Those facilities being the water treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant, our 2 city maintenance garages, the lab, which is out on Park Drive, and also the engineering and public works main building would also be part of this process. Out of the inventory then, there would be 2 half-day training sessions going over how to properly dispose of these particular items. So therefore, there's going to be a proposal that's coming forward, not a proposal, an ordinance coming forward for the authorization to accept a proposal from an engineering and consulting services for engineering consulting services, and then also a funding appropriation for covering the costs of these 2. One of the things I do kind of want to point out that Burgess and Nipel is the company that has kind of put together some options for how to go about doing this. And one of the options in there for services provided, which was interesting, is also having a review of the current MSDS, which is the material safety data sheet, which is currently used by everyone when you're documenting all hazardous materials. But apparently that's in transition to move into a globally harmonized system for safety data sheets, or safety data sheets. But regardless, transitioning over to these new forms of documenting hazardous materials and how we use those, Burgess and Nyepel will also go through and kind of research and prepare and provide recommendations for how to switch over from the old MSDS forms onto these new ones, as well as give recommendations for greener chemicals to be using that are less hazardous and toxic for not only the employees but for the environment. So.
What we like about this is we're an educational city, right? So as opposed to just paying a fine and paying cash out, we're going to utilize it to educate ourselves and our staff on the best methodology. So.
Sounds like a productive solution. So I'm glad that the EPA was willing to work with us on this. And it sounds like we'll come out better with the new classification system too, and some improvements.
We will be seeking council authorization to enter into these orders, and Debbie can prepare that. So.
And appropriate the money. And we do the household hazardous waste every other year, so this would be a double up, so to speak. We're doing it this year. We did the one last year. We wouldn't do one to next year.
Oh, I don't need to. Oh.
This help.
Thank you.
And
The auditor just reminded me that I do need money for the garbage appropriation, which funds the household hazardous waste. So.
And so you would want this as part of the appropriation ordinance next week?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So the hazardous waste part is about 15,000?
Could be up to. It hasn't been that high, but we might as well just.
If we do it every other year, it's usually about 15. So we're assuming actually it's usually been less than I think 11 or 13 most of the time. So the concept here, if we're doing it twice, every year, we might be able to drop it down a little bit.
Did I see somebody down there? Like they're going to say something?
Michelle, maybe.
No? Okay, so we'll hear more about this soon.
yes, we will.
Sooner, yes. Transportation Committee, chaired by Michelle Pack.
Okay, so our first item is, as many of who have been following this know, that we are now going to start the need for authorization and appropriation for the Richland South project. And so we're looking at the first step, which is funds for the engineering, the right-of-way acquisition, the construction engineering, and miscellaneous costs, and that would be project 244. So next week we will put forth that appropriation. The total amount will be $3.8 million to $4 million, and this already includes what's been spent over the last several years, as well as a new appropriation of about $3.5 million. And some of the money will already come from the ODOT funds, 589, 2.9 million. So, and the remainder of the funds will come from street rehab, water, sewer, stormwater funds, and those should be fairly small to round up the total cost. So that's what we're looking at. We're still looking at some of those final numbers, but this begins the process. So any questions?
I'll just comment that this is the section of Richland South that we're hearing a lot of
From the
complaints about.
Right, with the
And
potholes.
that the Service Safety Director and Andy Stone have both spoken to that, but just taking this chance one more time to say that this is the area that's going to be we're going to be working on this summer, so.
And I did have a question. Someone asked me, well, why don't you just pave it? And so I went into our philosophy that rather than just paving something to tear it up later, we are really looking at, that's why we went for the funding the way we did, was to do storm sewer and to do any other infrastructure below the pavement so that we don't have to keep tearing up the road. And as we all know, there's a lot of flooding in that area as well, and hopefully all of these improvements combined will save the pavement for future winters, but also the flooding issues that occur in that section. And there's a lot of utilities there. It's quite a complex project. Listening to Andy discuss it, it's very complex. So, again, patience as we move forward in that process. Yes, Steve?
Can you remind us again, time frame from
So,
from when they break ground?
I think the whole idea is to begin right away as soon as the students leave in May, and then with the idea that by Thanksgiving, the hope is that all will be completed. And that there will be flagging, there will at least be one lane open, is the plan, and need for flagging if need be. So all of that has been taken into consideration with the planning. All the businesses have been contacted. Everybody's, been working with the process, so.
And so everyone who lives up that corridor,
So
patience,
the
patience is the order of the day.
Mulligan
when
Road
construction
people may
begins.
want to go and hop on the highway rather than come down Richland Avenue. Just go, take a left at the bottom.
And the business owners.
And the business
who are up and
owners.
down Richland Avenue as well. They're going to be heavily impacted at times,
At times.
but it'll be for the greater good.
Yeah, they'll be happy in the end.
It'll be a happy ending. Okay.
I just want to make one comment, brought up the potholes. Problem right now is that there's hardly been a day that I go by down Richland Avenue that I don't see the city crews out there patching holes and putting in cold mix to try to alleviate some of the impact. In fact, I'm trying to think of a day past, since the snow left, that they haven't been out there. And it's a never-ending job. It's like Sisyphus trying to roll a stone up the hill and keeping it at the top of the mountain. It keeps rolling back down, but they're doing the best they can. I think the public has to realize that they are.
And I think the other thing the public probably isn't aware of is the hot mix is not available yet. So you can't even get the hot asphalt until, I'm not even sure when that plant opens up, the nearby plant. So they have to go with the cold mix as you described, which of course only lasts for so long. But they can't even purchase hot mix. So that's just something for the community to know.
And please be cognizant and drive carefully around the trucks that are putting these patches down. I was just driving up Richland Avenue today, and there was an individual out front with a leaf blower blowing gravel out, but be careful. Our workers are out there working, so don't go whipping around one of these trucks thinking that there's nobody in front.
Okay, the second item up for this evening is an exciting new piece of equipment. It's a track hoe. So we're going to put an ordinance forward to authorize the Service Safety Director to purchase a replacement for our backhoe, or track hoe, I'm sorry, for the Public Works Department. And so we'll authorize to advertise and accept bids and enter into contracts. And right now, we're looking at $65,000. 22 from the street fund, 220, TC 500, 22,000 from the water maintenance fund, 740, 635, and TC 500, and 21,000 from the sewer maintenance fund, 750, 635 as well.
Are we repurposing the old?
I have
Are we
no idea the
repurposing?
Do not
status.
know.
Don't know.
Find out. what they decided.
Okay, and any miscellaneous items for transportation? Okay, that's it, thank you.
We do have a special session that requires a quorum. We do have a quorum with one council member not present, so so we will move into an executive session dealing with personnel matters, and which would mean our audience needs to leave. And we're going to have the service safety director, the auditor, or the mayor, and
Deputy auditor, if you don't
the
mind.
deputy auditor. sitting
Need a
back.
motion? I motion
I always forget that.
that we move into a session, executive session, with all those people that Jim just said.
Second.
Amen.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
We need to do a voice vote.
Okay.
Aye.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
I didn't either.
Are we going to landlock this?